Alright, what's going on, Dr. Hammer? Reviewing The Big Sick this time. Um, I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was very fun to watch. I never would have thought of myself as like the big rom-com person, but I honestly had no qualms with this movie. I thought it was like really entertaining to watch. Like cute, funny here and there. Thought the story was really cool. Really interesting. Read up and like it was actually pretty much based on Kumail and Emily's actual like marriage, which was really interesting. Like really unlikely story, but they told it really well. Uh, let's see. Sort of like the main points that the movie's hitting at, like marriage and uh, like for these like first generation people coming from like Eastern countries. A lot of those like kind of resonated with me. My parents had that traditional like one time meetup in India and then they get married. But of course, like I was like unlike Kumail and in the movie, I was born in the States. He was like born and raised in Pakistan. My parents moved to India before I was born, but just those sentiments like rang so many bells about like oh, like we have someone for you, like we have someone for you to meet. And I will say, like in the movie, like Kumail's parents were very depicted to be very traditional, very strict, and all of that, which I know like a lot of people growing up kind of live in those similar households, um, which it's just like not, you don't want to say it's like a bad thing just because it is a cultural difference, but it really weighs on the kids. And I think the movie depicted that really well, just like the struggle of like just constantly an identity crisis of like I'm not the traditional like I as much as I appreciate my heritage like and where I'm from, I live here and like I want to have this lifestyle that a lot of my peers have. So just always struggling to find that balance was like really well done. And just the whole marriage thing, like how important it is, like that is so spot on. Um, Obviously, like since this is basically a real story, uh, but it's like I knew this growing up too. Like a lot, the stereotype is like coming from a Desi family, like or Indian Pakistani family, is like the stereotype is that you always need to like become a doctor. Like if you're not a doctor, then you're a failure. But like in reality, I've never ever faced that pressure from my parents or any family members. Um, like obviously, I'm not about to become a doctor. Um, and like same thing with my sisters. Like we never really had that pressure, but like the marriage thing is something that my parents took a lot longer to come around to. Um, Marrying non-Indian person, like I feel like 15 years ago that may not have been as open of a topic as it is now. Like credit to our parents specifically, but I know like there's still a lot of families out there where that like is not a welcome idea. So it's just the movie depicted all those like subtleties really well. A lot of those hit home, just like knowing a lot of this, just the different things that first gen people, like first gen students of like Eastern families kind of go through. But it did it in like a really lighthearted way. I think that's what it boils down to. Like while we are have these struggles necessarily, like we still have a much better life than like perhaps if we were to stay in our home countries. And I thought like one line that Kumail said was like, I know like when he was talking to his parents, is like, I know you guys have sacrificed so much for me, like all of this stuff, like you're constantly dealing with that of like my parents gave up all this, like they did all this just so I could like live this life. I want to like do what I can to help them, but at the same time, like that's so unnatural in today's world, like to just meet someone once and have this arranged marriage type thing. Like, that's just not how our generation is wired. So it was just like a really interesting thing that they depicted, and I thought the movie was like really interesting to watch. Just the relationship that he developed with Emily's parents while she was in a coma. That was like just, very cute, heartwarming to watch. And I also think like the fight that Kumail and Emily had, just like, seeing like, how open she is with her parents about like things like dating, sex, and all that stuff. And then how Kumail was like, I could never have those conversations. Like, so it was just like kind of cool to see those things like represented in a movie, which like, you don't really get to see that kind of representation. So I'm excited for like the discussion about it. I think it brought up some like really interesting points, and it'll just be, it's just, it was nice to like see some light be shed on a lot of these, a little more lighthearted topics, but there's still things that we can break down and like kind of discuss, why is this different? Like, what is this stemming from? What are the implications of it? So, I guess that's a review, already at 6 minutes. So, yeah, so excited to see you in class.